Welcome to the flip side of sports, where on this podcast we talk about the other side of sports, the side that isn't on mainstream sports media, the topics that don't normally make it to your local sports channel will be here. This type of show is different from the rest. It's not a sports talk show about the opinions on last night's games or who won the trade. This show is about the flip side of sports, the topics that aren't normally talked about. Instead, it will be talked about here, where every Friday you can take a listen to people that have the experience in the world of sports and get a new perspective on the sports we love. On episode 2, we'll be talking about the evolution of coaching. Coaching has changed so much as sports has developed throughout the years. From old school coaches where the mentality was to be excessively hard on your athletes and withhold any positive feedback, to now where we have player coaches, coaches that are embracing their players and providing them with the positive feedback. Here's my interview with Sarah Danato Senecas Sting's strength and conditioning coach, along with being an assistant coach on the Sting's Varsity women's soccer team. So we are here with Sarah Danato, the strength and conditioning coach and assistant coach for the Seneca women's soccer team. Sarah, thank you for joining me. Let's get to know you a little bit. So what got you into coaching in the first place?
It kind of fell into my lap, to be honest. I was playing soccer and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I was like, well, I'll just keep coming to Seneca and play soccer more. So I took fitness and health. And I was like, it's related to like learning about my body because I literally didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I realized I was like really interested in knowing more about how I could be a better athlete. And once I did my internship with strength and conditioning um, here at Seneca when I was a student here, and then they offered me the assistant role when I graduated. And then I also got offered like a year later to assist the women's soccer team. And I was like, okay, well, it just seems to fit. I can't see myself doing anything else. So kind of just literally fell into my lap with this amazing opportunity. And then I realized I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I'm doing it.
When it comes to coaching styles, because we have like all everybody's a different coach, right? So how would you say you coach your players?
Um, very I like to invest emotionally and like build a big rapport with my players because I feel like being a good coach is connecting with an athlete and learning how their mind works. So I think like my my style of coaching is very, very personal. I get to really know the athlete and then I try to like adapt my training to what that athlete's personality is.
When talking about the different types of coaching, we've come from in the past where there's coaches that are like very hard and it's my way or the highway to now coaches where it's like they're player coaches, right? They kind of let the players do their thing. What do you think was that transition over the years to make those coaches player coaches?
It's such a good question. I literally talk with this about my coaches all the time, even my players. I think it's just like society and the way that society has gone and the way that we've progressed and the beliefs and values of having more of an opinion and growing up younger generations to speak more about their emotions. And I feel like that's created, I don't want to say a softer generation, but kind of in a way, because
Yeah.
before you were allowed to say, like, no, like that's wrong, not good enough. And now it's more of like, hey, we can do better, which I think there's pros and cons to both ends. I like to think I'm split. I think that I really like old school mentality to a degree. I don't like that it's stuck in certain ways, but I like that there's when something's not good enough, it's told because in life not everything is always good enough. Where I feel sometimes with the modern day of coaching where we give athletes a rein and a little bit too much, that sometimes it's you give someone an inch and they go a mile. It's sometimes that's abused at a younger age where an athlete will be like, "Oh, this is my opinion," and then they'll almost feel like entitled, like, "I need to tell you their opinion."
Yeah.
And it's not done in a negative way, but it's more so ignorantly said, like they just feel like they're innately right to have more of an opinion towards things. So, and I think in some cases it's great because you're getting a different view and you're expanding and learning and growing. But in other ways, sometimes structure and discipline is necessary. It's such a big question. I'm sorry, I could
No,
go on about it forever.
no, it's such a great answer. When talking about like the player's opinion, they've in the media they've called it like player run teams. Like there's no coach.
Yeah.
Do you feel that a lot of the players that you work with that are younger are kind of having that like I'm gonna express my opinion no matter what, or do you think they kind of let their coach, like in your experience, do you think you can also guide them and have more of a
Yeah.
say?
I think that I think that I think that my players have a lot of opinions, but they have a lot of respect. And I think that's where the big line needs to be drawn and like needs to be like boldly stated. Like you can say what you want to say, but it has to be done in a respectful manner. So I feel like the culture that I like to take pride in it. I don't want to say it was 100% me because it wasn't, but I've really always been a big culture and is everything on the team. And I think that we've done a really good job at establishing a really good culture in the team. And the girls are self-taught, like the older generation of the team, the vets are starting to lead the younger and like teach them ways, like just in, for example, in practice, like one of our captains, she will forever be like, she'll be like, "Oh, you think it hurts now? Try being hurt in the 80th minute of a nationals game, trying to medal at a game. Like this is nothing to what it feels like to be in that moment." And like that right there just speaks culture, right? Because that's teaching younger kids like have the mentality to be tough. So I think that once the culture's so strong, they're able to self-lead under the values and the teachings of what we've instilled. So it's like you get to give them the reins because they're going to do what's right, and they feel like they still respect us as um, being in a higher ranking position. So it kind of just it's knowing when to give and when to pull back on both ends.
From coaching has been when it comes to coaching in the sense of like if a loss happens, people are very quick to either blame the coach. So especially in like wherever, depend no matter what sport, if it's the little league to the highest level sports, how do coaches deal with that and the scrutiny of even if it's a parent or if it's millions of fans?
Um, I think because I was an athlete before, I try to always put myself in my mom always taught me to put myself in other people's shoes. So for myself, I always do self-assessment. I was like that as an athlete. I'm like that as a coach. I think, okay, what would I think if I was on this point of view? Watching from an outside, not knowing it, watching as an athlete, and then watching as a coach. And I think of everyone's views and opinions, and I try to come to like the most logical reasoning for it. So when we lose, I think, what could I have done better? What could they have done better? What were the external factors that factored into this loss? And how do we respond to that? So I think there's always going to be people who will go against you. You will never please everyone. And it's learning how to take that rejection and instead of looking at and taking it so personally, take your emotions out of it, look at what you can learn from it and build from that. And know that not everyone's going to agree with what you're saying. So the most important part is making sure the athletes understand why it happened and what we can do to be better. And I think also a lot of the time we have to remember that everyone else kind of forgets we're humans sometimes. They just view us as coaches and they don't remember like we're human beings too. We make mistakes too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the whole human thing. I try to always give everybody the benefit of the doubt when they're
Yeah.
watching any sport or anything really, right? They're just people at the end of the day and they can make a mistake. When we talk about the coachings that are old school in the sense of it's my way or the highway, do you think that's gonna continue? Like, you think you'll still have those people, or do you think it's gonna start to be they're gonna realize that even the older ones, the ones that have been in it for years, realize that it's we have to loosen the reins and like give players the chance to express themselves and be themselves on while they're
Um,
playing.
it's so hard to say. Never know like the answer. I feel like eventually, yeah, things are gonna curve because they always curve, but um I think success is built in structure and discipline. And I think that certain coaches that, in my experience, very high performance coaches and very successful teams are usually the coaches that are the strictest ones. And if you ask a lot of athletes, most athletes will say their most memorable coaches are the ones that made the biggest impacts were the ones that were very, very hardcore and a lot of controversy in like some players hate them, some players love them. And I respect that. And I kind of hope that it, I just hope it progresses maybe in a way where both worlds collide in a way where it's the most optimal of both ends, that strict and that player lead where you take the best out of both of them and you learn how to mix it and make it a the best way of coaching, right?
Yeah,
I
somewhat
think
some
that
No,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, someone's like
No, no, go
somewhat of
on.
a balance. Somewhat of a
Yeah,
balance,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's gonna fully fade away because I
Hmm.
think that if you look at history and successful teams, there's a very strong correlation between like very strict coaches and very by the book coaches with some with success.
Yeah, this player coaching is kind of like it's new, so it's like they don't
Yeah,
have the history or the records, right?
it doesn't have the
To balance
success
the
writing
success
behind
story.
it. Yeah,
Exactly.
but not to say it's wrong. It's just
No, no.
there's one way that's been working, and I think that it'll that's the biggest trend.
Yeah. When looking to what coaching entails for people that are coming into coaching, if it's their first year or if they wanted to get into it, what is something to expect or
Great.
some things to expect?
I love these questions. I think to expect is put your expectations away. Like just go in with an open mind and expect the unexpected. You're gonna have to it's really about finding where you fit in the team. And that's something I learned because like I was a player on this team for 5 years and then transitioned to a coach. I feel like when I was a player, I became captain. It took me a full year to learn how to be a captain. It took me when I switched positions, it took me a full year how to learn to be a defender from or a center back from a center defensive mid to really understand where I fit and how I fit in that puzzle. And I think that's the same thing as being a coach, learning where you fit in the team. A lot of observations, learning players, learning coaches, learning styles, learning thoughts. And then once you figure that out and get more of a grasp of your surroundings and your culture, then you can kind of figure out, okay, this is the approach I'm going to take and how I'm going to tackle being a coach. So I think the first year of being a coach is just a lot of observation and being open minded.
Do you feel that a lot of coaches take the time and develop that understanding of what the team is, or do you think some coaches and what you've seen in the media and like other stuff you've been around that it's like they just walk in and they implement what they want to do and they don't kind of evolve with what they have in front of them?
I think it's very situational. I think with high performance teams like pro teams, you're gonna have coaches that can come in and put in this and put in like their theory and their methods and their um their programs, and it will work because at the end of the day at a pro level you're getting paid, so it's your job to do what the coach tells you. But when you're working at a system where it's something where it's more of an option to be there, so not something that's a national or pro, um you're getting a lot more personalities that you have to deal with, and that might not give a coach um, as much pull to do what they want. So they'll have to adapt. So it's very situational on what the level of play is when going into being a coach.
What's next for you and like while you continue at Seneca, do you have any aspirations as for your coaching career?
Yeah, so I have big goals. I couldn't make it as a player. I always say this. I'm like, one day I'm gonna have a documentary and it's gonna talk about my whole journey because I feel like I can connect with a lot of people. And I was never the best player on the field, but I always saw the game really well. Like every coach always told me I had really good soccer IQ, and I did. And I take pride in that, and I feel like that can carry over to being a coach. And like I think I was truly meant to like teach this game to females. And my goals is I want to build this program of strength and conditioning at Seneca and build a culture that like of success throughout the entire program of Varsity. As far as coaching, I would like one day to see myself being the head coach of Seneca, and then my long term goal is get all my licenses, my Canadian licenses, and then start my UEFA licensing. And I would love to coach a female pro team, which I'm slowly getting involved more with club soccer. So the goal is get into like semi pro, coach as an assistant, eventually be a head, maybe get into coaching into pro as an assistant, and then eventually as a head. So the opportunities are kind of endless. I'm going to get my licenses and then see where the doors open.
Well, you're definitely on the right track, coach. I appreciate you taking the time with me.
Thank you so much. I love the questions. Thank you.
Before we end this episode, I wanted you to take a listen to a post from Duda Media, a TikTok account where a coach is talking to other coaches about how to treat young athletes.
You have to earn the right to yell at a kid. You do not have that inherent right. When we were growing up, coaches had that inherent right. They'd tell us, do this, we did it. Eat lima beans, I eat lima beans. It's not like that anymore. You have to earn the right to yell at a kid. If all you do is yell all the time, it goes in one ear, out the other. I try to talk to kids. I try to teach. If your actions and your mannerisms will be about teaching, they're going to respect you more. Now, I also say, if I do raise my voice, it resonates. If I raise my voice to them, it's immediate attention because I've earned that right by not doing it every single day. Does that make sense?
That's all for today's episode. Thank you for listening. Check back in next week from the flip side of sports. I'm Noah Trenton. Catch you guys later.